bought them or they bought them? 6. I looked at 2 men. Yeah. That's why I won't be paying almost half the account.
Okay, welcome everyone. My name is Ray Buchan. We're going to spend the next 45 to 60 minutes looking at Epicor Kinetic ERP for custom and project-based manufacturers. Some of you may have attended an event in the past. It's easy to do the repetitive order processing type work in ERP. And today we're going to focus on some of the tough stuff where it's configure to order, make to order, engineer to order. Just a bit of housekeeping. If you have questions, please use the chat window if you don't mind. Type your questions in there. I'll make sure that we have time to address them at the end of the session. If you really have a question that's pressing, you can take yourself off mute and go ahead and ask the question, and I'll do my best to answer it. I'm going to keep the lines muted for the duration of the presentation until the end, but you are able to unmute yourself if necessary. So without further ado, let's go through a few slides here, and then we'll dive right into the software. So we'll just talk about some quick introductions here. We'll look at an overview of Epicor and look at a sample job review. When we talk about terminology, a job in Epicor is a work order. Some people call it, but it's the manufacturing job. We'll get into project management. For those of you that it applies to, we'll look at the processing of a quote to an order, to manufacturing. We'll do some shop floor data collection. We'll look at CAD integration, field service, and again, have some time for Q&As at the end. So my background's in manufacturing. I ran a plant for 11 years. I purchased an ERP system in 1997 and went into consulting in 2002. So I did implementations on ERP for a number of years. And then migrated into demonstrating ERP and then eventually selling it. And I've worked with 3 different systems in my career, including Epicor for the last 8 years. So who uses Epicor in a project or custom make to order environment? So it's companies that build capital equipment. So where there might be thousands of components to track. They might have multiple manufacturing orders to complete the project. Aerospace and defense manufacturers, where they're looking for overall visibility into a project, looking for project costing, tracking R&D, shred claims. Some people like the integration to Microsoft Project, and they might have multiple quotes, orders, POs, et cetera, associated to a larger project. Companies with heavy engineering requirements. So they want to track their engineers' costs against a structured work breakdown structure. They're looking for integration to CAD in order to upload a bill of material and eliminate duplicate data entry. And they're looking for document management, attaching and associating documents, not just to the project, but throughout the system. And then we've got construction companies with field service requirements. So they're looking to track field service time and expenses against the project. They're looking for mobile devices for their field service technicians, and scheduling and dispatching capabilities for their field service people. And lastly, companies that are make to order or configure to order. So they might be looking at a detailed takeoff or estimating. It might be a one-off, a make to order or an engineer to order where they'll never build this again. It could be configured to order. So they're building similar products, but they're configured for the customer with options and features. Real quick about Epicor. Epicor has been in business for 50 years, over 27,000 customers worldwide in 150 countries, close to 4,000 employees, and about $1 billion in revenue. There's over 120,000 cloud users and growing, and we've got a high retention rate of about 95%, with, again, a high growth rate on our cloud offering. Success Partners is who I work for direct. So we are a Epicor Platinum partner across the US and Canada. We've been in business for 14 years and we're dedicated to Epicor. So we sell, we implement, and we support Epicor ERP. That is our business. Our strength is our people from industry, not only bringing the product expertise and knowledge, but also the industry expertise. So it's less about the point and click training and more about best practices and recommendations based on their experience and their training. A lot of our consultants are Six Sigma green belts. And just a snapshot of our customer base. So out of the 27,000 customers globally with Epicor, this is a snapshot of our customer base, which represents somewhere in the neighborhood of 270 customers. Some references possibly in your industry. Companies like Alps Welding. So these are pressure vessel manufacturers. These are all custom tanks that are manufactured within the shop. They are transported to the field and installed or erected on site with their field service people. Unifab Building Enclosures, similar type process. Exco Engineering with offices in or plants, manufacturing plants in the US, Mexico, and Newmarket, Ontario. Building large automotive dies, very heavily project-based with high CAD integration requirements. Prayer Machine, very similar again, capital equipment manufacturer. Lots of aerospace and defense customers. So you can imagine building an airplane and the number of components, materials, and labor that go into building those types of products. JLR manufactures farm equipment, and they are a heavy configure to order company, where in fact, when they take an order, they use the configurator, they answer a series of questions, and it not only goes into sales, but also goes right to the manufacturing floor for production. And companies like Sellick Equipment, building forklifts. Some other examples, Pattison Sign Group, large custom manufacturer of signs. Tate is a stage production company. And again, these are all one-off, custom type project-based environments, companies that will do retrofitting inside buildings and airports, and even companies like Athletica that build hockey rinks around the world. So again, configure to order, project-based. They manufacture it, they ship it, they go on site and install it. Lots of automation companies across North America. And this one I'd like to highlight is a recent success story of ours last year. We implemented this company in a very short period of time. It was actually a 6-week implementation. They were a startup company. And this is an example of the final stages of the implementation where they're doing a conference room piloting. And our team is working with their team on the final validation and testing. There's another example of a customer of ours that is a heavy configure to order type customer. They retrofit ambulances, fire trucks with roll-up doors, really any vehicle. And what they have throughout their facility are these dashboards that are produced out of Epicor. And they've got about 25 of these flat screen TVs throughout each department. And these dashboards will present information that's useful to that department. And in this particular case, it's in front of an assembly area. And what they're looking at is the customer, the job number, the date it needs to be packed by, and the various operations or stages it goes through in order to complete it and ship it out the door. As people are reporting on these MES stations on the shop floor that you see on the lower screen here, these dashboards will change dynamically. And there's actually rules built into this as well, where the colors will change based on the rules that they've configured. So really, again, the business benefit of this is you're walking through your shop floor, you look at a dashboard in a department, and you know right away, are things running well, or do we have something we need to look at or be concerned about? Another example of a dashboard here. And getting back to these MES devices, they're also using them in the shipping and receiving department. So we'll see this in the software today. But here you can see they're running actually a Microsoft Surface Go tablet. It'll run on any device, any browser, but they're also using it not just for production, but also for shipping, receiving, and material movements. Here's another example of a dashboard that they built out of Epicor, looking at the lines picked, the lines shipped, and the lines received today. And because they're running 3 companies within one facility, they've got the 3 different gas gauges. Another example of a customer in a project-based environment, Northern Transformer. Some of the benefits that Russell Anderson talks about here is that they have visibility into the procurement status for all jobs. They have a closed loop costing analysis on jobs in real time, and the fact that it was a crucial stepping stone for them to reach their growth targets. So I met these people maybe 6-7 years ago, very small company that had rapid growth, and Epicor was put in early enough where they were able to expand and grow without adding additional overhead. So you can see some of the custom transformers that they're building on the right-hand side, and the materials on the shop floor here are materials that they're purchasing to the job for the most part. So they bring very little into inventory. A lot of it comes into the shop floor and is issued directly to the job or the project. They're also big users of Epicor's dashboards. So here you see a dashboard in a production area, and this dashboard happens to be dynamic, where it's looking at the jobs on the left. And when an operator will click on a job, he'll get additional information on the right-hand side of the screen. As far as the functionality in Epicor, I'm not going to read all of this, but just a couple of highlights. So we do offer 2 deployment options, choice of cloud or on-premise. So it's entirely up to you. I can tell you from our own experience, the last 12 months, 70% of our new sales have been cloud. So it definitely is the trend. But of course, we do have customers still buying on-premise, and it really becomes a personal preference. As far as functionality goes, Epicor is a fully embedded solution, and it's really a big differentiator between other products that I've worked with. So other products that I've worked with will heavily rely on third-party applications, so that you'll get a small core set of functionality. And then if you want to get into things like quality management or e-commerce or warehouse barcoding or even shop floor data collection, a lot of times those systems will rely on a third-party product. Within Epicor, it's fully embedded in the core solution. So finance, sales and CRM, product management, project management, which we're going to talk about today, planning and scheduling and supply chain, production management, service and asset management, and HR. The online learning is embedded within the software, so it lets you walk through tutorials, watch videos, and guides you through the training of the software. Everything's mobile enabled. An example here is a shop floor data collection stations, or MES stations. And again, I'm going to show you this live in the system today. What I do want to point out, though, is that most ERP solutions will have some type of MES solution. Most of them are geared towards tracking production. So clock on and off of jobs to give you the costing, tracking, and scheduling. Epicor obviously does that, but it goes much further than that. It allows you to clock on and off for payroll. It allows you to issue materials. It allows you to report quality non-conformances. It allows you to do shipping and receiving and a host of other functions. So it expands quite a bit beyond just the standard collection of labor from the shop floor. We also have Epicor Mobile Warehouse, and this is very similar to what you saw on the MES device. The difference being that this is an app that's downloaded onto your phone or a device like we're showing here, which in this case is a Honeywell CT40 scanner. It's got a built-in scanner and a rugged case. And this will allow you to do, again, most of the functions that the MES station has. And it's really mainly thought of people working in a warehouse or walking around and picking and shipping. It can also be used in service, which we'll talk about later. Other mobile apps include sales or CRM, time and expense entry. And the last one I'm going to show you here is something called Epicor Virtual Agent, or EVA. And if you think about Siri on your iPhone, it allows you to talk to to EVA and ask EVA a question. So show me information about this customer. She will return the customer master file and allow you to drill down further. Permissions, of course, as a requirement. Maybe I want to check inventory. How many of these parts do I have on hand? It'll return that part master file with a quantity on hand, and again, allow me to drill down further. All right, so that's it for the slides. We're going to dive into the software. And I'm going to start by doing an overview of the solution. And one thing I'm going to show you is that we are going to spend time in both the client and the browser, just so you get a flavor of both. They're really, it's the same software, whether you're running a client or a browser. We're looking at the client right now. And if I go to the browser, you'll see that I'm now running in a browser, but it's the same solution. So we'll start in the client, and then we'll flip back to the browser at some point. But let's go ahead and do an overview. So what we're looking at here is something called a home page in Epicor. And like every system that's out there, Epicor has a full menu structure. So I can click on sales, service, production, materials management, and so on. And if I click on one of these, it gives me another subset of folders. And maybe I want to get into job management. I've got 3 more folders here: reports and general operations and setup. When I click on that, I get a whole bunch of other options, or apps or modules. Now, if I wanted to do, say, this thing called job entry right here, well, that's 4 clicks to get the job entry. So we don't like navigating through the menu structure if it's something you're going to use on a regular basis. What we want is we want to have that module or that function sitting over here on your home screen. So you can see I've got job entry here, and I've configured my home screen as a user to show the modules that I use on a regular basis. So you can see I've got quote entry, I've got project entry, order entry, jobs, job scheduling, MRP, and so on. So I have personalized this to suit what's important to me as an end user. I've also got an embedded dashboard here and a grid view at the bottom with some information. Now, as an end user, how easy is it to modify that? You click on the 3 dots up here, and I can click edit. And what it allows me to do here now is modify and manipulate the screen. So if I was no longer involved in issuing jobs or managing jobs, I can say remove it, get rid of it altogether. Okay, take it right off my screen. And maybe the quoting has become a bigger part of me, and I want to take this and make it a big tile now. So I can do that. I can add additional apps over here on the right-hand side. So if I wanted to add purchase order entry or shipping and receiving, whatever the case is, I simply click on the add app. I can select the color of my tile. I can select the app and give it a title. I can give it an image. So the theme that I've got over here is a very clean white tile with a blue icon. It's really up to you on what you want that to look like. So point being, you can manipulate and configure this any way you want. You can embed charts, as I said, and scrolling down further, I can embed images, including the Epicor logo up here is really just an image. And I can embed websites. So here I've got a TD Bank, a link to a TD Bank, which will take me directly out to my bank and not force me to go and open up a separate browser and so on. So very easy to configure and personalize your own home screen, and you can have as many of those home screens as you want. So if I say change layout here, you can see I've got a whole bunch of different home screens with different layouts for different departments. One for finance, one for manufacturing, one for penny, and so on. So you've got your home screen. I've also got these tabs across the top here. So I've embedded additional tabs, and if I click on this order totals by state monthly, you'll see that it's starting to cycle through the months, and it's showing me where my sales are by state. So that's a dynamic dashboard that's updating real time. If I look at the next dashboard here that I've got an aging dashboard, and I've got a bunch of KPIs over here, aging amount, by customer group, by customer. I've got a graph over here. Any of these dashboards or graphs you can pop out just by clicking on the little icon here. And here you might want to manipulate it and change the graph, the type of graph, depending on what you prefer. And you can start to use filters and slice and dice the information on the right-hand side here. Now you can do that within an individual graph, but if I come back to my primary home screen here, you'll notice that I actually have the filters sitting here on the right-hand side as well. So I can take that information, I can start to slice and dice it and remove customers or add customers. And you'll notice that not only the graph changes, but all the other KPIs will change at the same time. Okay. I've got a warehouse map with our resource group efficiency set up here. So we've overlaid a map of our plant we've got the machines here, and what we're monitoring is real-time efficiencies coming off the data collection stations. Those data collection stations can be manual, or they can be tied directly to a PLC. And then one last one here I'll show you is production quotas. This is more on the sales side of things, but hopefully you get the idea. You've got the ability to create dashboards, use the existing dashboards. You can embed them in your home screen, or you can create separate tabs, or you can create a completely different home screen for you. Continuing on with the navigation, I'm going to click on the search button here. And what this is, if you think of Google search, this is a Google type search, but instead of searching the internet, it's searching your Epicor database. So when I type something in here, it's going to search and find everything and anything to do with the word or words that I typed in. So this is really helpful for people that are not frequent users of the system, or maybe you get a customer service person that gets a phone call and they say, I have a question about my invoice, and maybe they're not sure where to find that module, or where to find the invoice number. They can simply type it in here and it will find all the records with that number or that name. You have favorites. So not only can you create a home page, but you can also create a favorites list here, and you can group those favorites. This just shows your recents. This gives you an example of all the dashboards that are available for you to embed or use. And this thing down here is called Epicor Collaborate. So what this is, it's a communication tool. If anyone's used Teams or any of those chat type tools, Teams is pretty popular these days. This actually integrates with Teams, but the concept of this is it's embedded within Epicor, and it's also embedded within each individual module. The example I like to give is if we're building a quote, we might start a conversation within that quote module, and I might send it to somebody and ask them to review something for me. They might chime in and say, I need to get engineering involved. And now there's maybe 3 or 4 of us having a dialogue about this particular quote. And that dialogue is saved within that quote module in the chat window, and it's saved there forever. So if you think about all the emails that you send back and forth between each other and where you save those emails into your file folders that you create, that's great for you, but it's not shared information. So this is now tied to the record, in this case, a quote, and that information is saved forever. So you can always look back on history to see what dialogue transpired against that particular record. Another part of this is the notification process. So if I look at notification rules, you'll see I'm following one rule. So I'm saying, it says a customer has been placed on credit hold, and because I'm following that, I'll get an automatic notification telling me that that's the case. So there's a host of standard rules throughout the different modules that you can follow to get automatically notified on something. So think of it as a Twitter feed. Obviously, the more you follow, the more noise you're going to get in your chat window. And beyond this, you can also create your own custom notifications, which I'll show you in a minute. The help we talked about in the overview. So we've got the videos, the articles, and the guided tour. And one last thing I'll mention on this side of the screen is that Epicor is a fully multi-company, multi-site solution. So I've got a number of different companies, legal entities in this one database, and I've got multiple sites within each company. All right, let's continue on with that notification piece. I'm going to click on order entry. And what I want to do here is I actually want to create a new order. So I'm going to click on the little plus sign up here, and we're going to create a new order. And I'm just going to type in the customer name. And what I want to show you here is a notification rule that's expanded on top of what I mentioned earlier. And this is a common feature throughout the system. So the rule that I've got set up is around this discount field. And don't get hung up on this specific example, but think about the tool set and how you might use it in your department, whether it's in regards to a project or a quote or a manufacturing job or somewhere in finance. But in this case, we have a business rule that says we do not allow people to enter discounts over 25%. So if I type in 40% here and you watch the top right-hand side of your screen, you're going to see it gives me a pop-up message. It's asking me, am I out of my mind? So our rule says we don't allow that. We're giving the user a pop-up message right in their face. And if I try to save this now, it's going to ask me for a reason. Let's say it's Ray's friend, and we're going to submit that for approval. So as a user, I'm trying to enter an order. I'm trying to give the discount that this customer has requested. Because our policy does not allow that, it's stopping me in my tracks. It's asking me for a reason, and it's also locking the order down on hold. So it's doing a number of different things here as I progress. Now this notification for approval has gone to my manager, and it could create a notification in the chat window, or it could create a task for somebody. But in this case, what I'm going to show you is that it's created an email. So if I go into my Outlook here and do a send or receive, we should see an email come in automatically from the system that is telling me they're looking for approval on something. So here we see order number 5645, discounts above 25%, approvals needed. They're asking for 40%, and it's Ray's best friend. That's the reason why. You might click on a link and open up the order, or as a manager, you might simply reply to this and say approved. And maybe you don't want to approve 40%. So let's do, say, 5%, and we'll send that back. So as a manager, I might be on the road. I might see a notification coming through to me for approval. And rather than waiting till I get back into the office or opening up my laptop, I might just reply to this on my phone with that approval. And when I come back into order entry now, what we'll see here is that it's at 40% right now, and the order's on hold. And if I do a refresh here, we should see it come off hold and move to that 5%. And there we go. There's the 5%. So that's through the workflow tool called Business Process Management in Epicor. And that's, again, just expanding on the ability to create workflows anywhere throughout the system. All right, so that's it for the overview. Let's go ahead and start to dive a little deeper into the software. I want to start with a sample job review. So I'm going to go to my home screen here. And we're going to go to job entry. And I want to just give you an understanding of what a bill of material and routing looks like. So here we're looking at a job, a manufacturing job for a hydraulic lift system. And if I click on the assembly tab up here, we're going to see the detailed bill of material and routing. So here's some additional detail. In Epicor, you always have a treed view. You have a detailed view on the right-hand side, and also a list view like an Excel spreadsheet. So let me show you what I mean by that. If I'm looking at a bill of material, I can expand the treed view, and I can see I've got a list of 3 materials at my top level. If I click on where it says materials, I get it more in a grid view or an Excel spreadsheet view. So now I'm seeing the 3 materials in an Excel spreadsheet view. And if I want to see additional detail, I can click on the material itself, and it's going to show me the part number, the description, the quantity required. So I need 8 of these bolts, and the cost is 3 cents per bolt. Okay, so that's a bill of material. Same with labor operations. If I expand this, if I click on operations, you will see that in a grid view: assemble, final inspection, wrap, and ship. And if I click on a detailed operation, you'll see the detail of that operation, including the rate of production, which in this case, on the right-hand side of the screen, is 10 pieces per hour, which can be defined a number of different ways, as fixed hours or hours per piece, and so on. And the reason I'm showing you this is because this structure is also used in estimating, and that's where we're going to go next. I do want to show you that there are sub-assemblies as well. So if I click on sub-assemblies, you'll see that I've got 2 of them, a bracket and a frame. And if I was to click on the next sub-assembly here, you'll see that this is the frame assembly. And if I expand that further, you'll see the indentations start to take place, where it's got its own bill of material, which is a piece of stainless steel. And it's got its own labor operations, which include punching, forming, deburring, and outside vendor heat treating. So we are going to come back to this, but I wanted to give you that structure. Let's go ahead now and start to process an order. We're going to go from quote all the way through. So let me come back to my main homepage here. We'll click on the quote module. And I've got a quote sitting here. So it's quote number 1189. It's for that hydraulic lift system. And I've got some general information here. And if I scroll down, we'll see additional detail, including any quantity breaks, if we had any for pricing. But I'll see the line items down below here. So I've got, we're quoting a hydraulic lift, we're quoting a conveyor and a configured window. Now, I like to describe quoting in Epicor as there's 4 different ways. Number 1, I can type in a description without a part number. I can type in a description and a price and save it, and that's a quote. Number 2, I'll use spare parts as an example. I can type in a part number, which will automatically pull up the pricing from a price list based on the customer, the quantity breaks, and so on. Number 3 is that we're going to build an estimate. And we're going to build it by creating a bill of material and routing. And we're going to look at our costs, and then we're going to apply markups to it. And then number 4 is the configurator. And that's where we're going to answer a series of questions. And it's going to build the configuration for us, meaning it will build the bill of material and routing for us automatically. So let's look at the last 2 briefly here. On the hydraulic lift system, if I click on engineering, what you're going to see here is that structure that we saw on the manufacturing job. So we are in estimating right now, or quoting. Okay, and I'm building a bill of material for this hydraulic lift system. And this is where, to add operations and materials, it's the same type of deal. Now, how did I build this? Number of different ways. Number 1 is I can right click and do this really manually and say, add a new operation. Okay. I can right click and I can say, add a new material. So I can manually bring those parts in one by one. I can go to the engineering tab. I can look at a list of all my parts in the system, and I can drag and drop and filter those parts and drag and drop them into my bill of material here. Same with labor operations. And then the easiest way, and probably the most common way to do it, is when I click on this and I do something called get details. So what get details is, it's using a template or copying from something that already exists. So a lot of companies I deal with will have a spreadsheet for estimating, and they might save them as templates, as a starting point, and maybe different templates for different types of products or quoting. But they've all got a series of tasks or operations with labor in them, and they've got a list of materials, and they'll use that as a starting point. And that's exactly what we're doing here. We're saying, let's take, we're building a new quote for a hydraulic lift system, but let's copy it from a method or a template, or let's copy it from a previous job that we've run, or let's copy it from a previous quote. And when I do that, it will bring in that structure that you saw here. Okay, and then from there, obviously, if this is not exactly what you're looking for, now you can start to manipulate it and say, delete that material, I don't need it. Or the quantity, instead of 8, it's now 32. So you're manipulating this, you're modifying the template to suit what you're actually quoting. Now, once you do that, if I go back to the quote module here, once you build that cost structure, labor and materials, they all carry costs. I can now start to look at the pricing. And when I go to my worksheet, this is where I start to view what the costs are. So I'm looking at the costs broken down by 5 different categories with a total cost of $747. I'm proposing we mark this up by 30%, which is giving me a profit of $224. And my suggested selling price is $972. If I scroll down to the bottom here, you'll see a few more things. I'm paying a sales rep a 4% commission, which is $38. So my total suggested selling price, and suggested being the keyword, is $1,010. And at the end of the day, I can decide what I want to quote this for. Okay. You'll also notice that there's different price breaks. So look at my cost here on a quantity of 1 is $747. If I say, if a customer asks me, give me a price on 1, give me a price on 4. When I click on 4, look at my unit cost. It's drastically reduced because I'm amortizing the overhead and setup costs across 4 pieces rather than 1. So this is really the tool that's given you to analyze the numbers and make an educated decision on what we're going to sell it for. And it very well may be market price, but at least you know where you stand based on the selling price that you get. All right, so that's a little bit on quoting. And just before we leave that, a couple of more things. The configurator, so I do want to touch on that. For those of you in a configure to order environment, you notice a configure button pops up here. And when I click on that, it's going to launch the configurator. And in this case, we're building a window. So we're now a window manufacturer, and I can select options. When I select the different window types, you notice that options below will change. And as I check further options down below here, you'll see that things are starting to add up here. And I've got drop downs. I've got selecting the width and the height and the quantity and so on. Changing the climate, and then it's giving me a glass type and putting down some information. If I select options here, it's showing me some additional pictures. And again, notice what it's doing here. It's building a price and the specs and the part number using the Epicor's embedded configurator. Okay, what it's also doing in the background is building that bill of material and routing that we just looked at. All right, so that's Epicor's product configurator. And just before we move away from estimating, let's go back there for a second. Close that by mistake. Let's go back and look at that quote. Just 2 last things I want to mention before we move on. So we're going to call that quote back up 1189. And one of the common questions you'll get when estimating is, how much is it and how soon can I get it? Well, if I look at the line detail here for this hydraulic lift system, I can come up here and I can say, put this on a what if schedule. So what if schedule meaning schedule finitely. Let's say we're making 4 of these things. If I start the order today, how soon can I get that done? So what it's going to do is it's going to take that structure that you've created with all that labor time. It's going to plot it on the current schedule in a what if scenario. And it's going to look at the current load and the current capacity and come back with a completion date, which in this case is November 11th. Okay, so it hasn't committed anything, but it's allowing you to get an idea of how soon you can get this produced based on the current load and the current capacity. All right, the final thing here on estimating is that when you're finished here, what you can do is you can go back to the main detail here. You can convert a quote to an order. And by doing that, you simply say create sales order. And it will ask you, when do they need it by? Is there a PO number? Some additional information. And what are they ordering? Are they ordering all 3 line items, or maybe it's just one of them? If I say create down at the bottom here, it creates a sales order. If I actually go to the order job wizard, it won't just, it'll not only create the sales order, but actually create the manufacturing job. And I mentioned our customer JLR, that's actually what they do. They push things all the way through to manufacturing right from the configurator. All right, so that's enough on estimating. Let's close out of this. And I said I was going to flip between the client and the browser. So let's move to the browser version now. And again, it's the same software, same solution. Let's talk about project management. And I do want to start by showing a slide. So I'm going to go back to the PowerPoint for a second here, just to explain what a project is. So a project allows you to attach and associate documents. It allows you to create phases. You can see that I've got design, engineering, manufacturing, and installation. It will track all related quotes, all related sales orders, all related manufacturing jobs, all related purchase orders. And of course, there is a project schedule. So it's not just about scheduling individual manufacturing jobs, but it's actually scheduling the entire project. We do track costs against projects and billings. So you can have milestone billings created. And the costs here, you'll see that we've got quoted, estimated, actuals, cost to complete and projected, meaning where are we at today? And if we meet the estimate, will we meet the target or the budget at the end of this? So it gives you a full cost analysis as well. So jumping back into the software, and if I go to project entry, and I'm just watching my time here running a little bit past. So I must have been waiting too long. It's kicked me out. So we'll log back in here. And I can call up a project. This is a capital machine project. CAP 1000 is my project ID. And I'll try not to repeat everything I just showed you, but here are the phases again that we talked about, milestones, the costs. We can all look at that, the revenue recognition. Here's the related information, related orders. Here's the sales orders. Here's the related quotes. Here's the related manufacturing jobs and purchase orders. Okay. And the phases we talked about, and the billings and so on. I'm not going to spend a lot of time here at this point, but what I do want to say is that from a project standpoint, you can duplicate a project. Same with really any module in the system. So it's like a template. We might have a structure for a project with different tasks that we go through every time, contract review, engineering review, and so on, customer sign off. So we want to have those set up as a standard or as a template, and we would duplicate that template when we're creating a new project. Project scheduling board. You can export to Microsoft Project as well for if you have customers that want to see it in a MS Project format. So again, based on time, I'm going to watch what I'm doing here. That is the project itself. Let's go ahead. I'm going to skip the sales order process, but just to recap, we've created a quote, we've won the business, we've turned it into a sales order, we've created a project, we've linked whatever we can right now, and now we're going to go start manufacturing it. So let's go back and go into that job entry and start looking at processing that manufacturing job. So 2447 was the job for that hydraulic lift system. We've already looked at the assemblies, the bill of material, and routing. You can print a job traveler if you want. This is all paperless if you want to. Some people do like to print. Whenever you do print an Epicor, in this case, I'm going to say print sub-assemblies on a new page for sub-assembly. I want to print barcodes, and I'll just do a preview here. You do have options. You'll notice down here that I can filter, and whenever I print something, I can print it to various file formats, and I can also have different forms as well. So I got to have different travelers for different applications, or maybe different quotes for different customers, that type of thing. So you can print that with barcodes or not. And let's go and talk about scheduling on the job now. So when we're scheduling, sorry, there's the job traveler that just popped up, and you'll notice that we've got job number. The part is a hydraulic lift system, and we see start and due dates. We see the two sub-assemblies, barcodes for the materials, and barcodes for the labor operations. Okay, so if you like this type of format where people are scanning on and off of jobs, that's an idea of what it would look like, and all these forms are tailorable or customizable. So job scheduling, let's talk about that. From the job scheduling standpoint, Epicor will schedule all jobs, all projects automatically, but you do have the ability to schedule something on the fly. So if I go to job scheduling, here it opens up the scheduling window. It allows me to force forward schedule. It defaults to a backwards direction for just in time. It allows me to, well, it will automatically check material constraints. You can override that. You can do finite or infinite capacity, and you can do what if schedules. Once you schedule that, it will populate that on a scheduling board, and we're going to go there now. So let's go ahead and look at that. So the job scheduling board, we'll do a search here, and let's just call up a few jobs. So we'll look at, you can sort this any way you want, but we'll look at the 2447 and maybe two other jobs here and bring those into our schedule and look at that in a Gantt chart view. So if I scroll over here, first of all, I'm in days. I'm going to take that out to weeks so we get a better view of the schedule. And I can see those 3 jobs here. And those 3 jobs are for those 3 items. And what we're going to do here now is we're going to focus in on one of the jobs. So these happen to all be on time. If a job was scheduled to be late, it would show up in red. And you can change colors based on what you prefer there. So you can have colors set. Just looking for so anyway, you can change the colors based on what you want them to be. So in my case, I've got colors set up as red for a job being late, and various other colors. So here's the late color. If a job is complete, it'll turn green. If a job is locked, meaning we don't want it to move, it's kind of a beige or brown color. So that's personal preference on you. And I can expand this and see my different operations. I can see my sub-assemblies and expand my sub-assembly right down to my indented bill of material and see all that on the graph here. I might want to zoom in to days here at this point when I'm looking at this level of detail. And of course, I can zoom in right to the hour or the minute. And I can also use my mouse and just zoom in this way by scrolling the wheel on my mouse. This is all drag and drop as well. So if I did want to manipulate and play with things, it allows me to do that manually. And it shows me what the proposed changes are, and I can either accept that or not. So that's a little bit on scheduling. Let's look at the shop floor data collection now, and we'll do that from a browser view. So let me go back to my desktop here, and we'll open up the browser labor collection or MES station. And the first thing I'm going to do is log in as an employee. So I can scan my ID badge or type that in. And you can see that I'm employee John J. Labor, and I have access. So one thing I didn't mention was that all the screens in Epicor are tailorable, so I can turn on and off functionality depending on the user security and permissions. In this case, John has access to everything, so he can start production, he can start a setup, he can start an indirect code, he can do rework, he can look at his upcoming work or work queue, he can report downtime. He can look at, in a read-only format, the job information, same with the parts. He can look at documents that are associated with these jobs, drawings, CNC files, whatever the case may be. And down below, he can do additional information like entering non-conformances, or maybe returning materials or asking for a forklift driver to come and pick up his work. He's also got tabs across the top here. He can do material issues, material movements. He can do shipping, receiving. Okay, there's a service tab, a supervisor tab where they can manage the employees and see who's working on what. Look at suggestions. But John here is clocked into 2 different jobs. So he's working on 2 different jobs simultaneously, both of them on the shear. But for job 2447, that's the one that we were looking at. When he's complete that job, he simply says, end the activity. And it'll call up here and ask him what he completed. So, how many did he make? Does he want to print tags for that? Was there anything scrap? Again, select a reason now. So you need to select a reason code if you're doing scrap. And it can also report non-conformance. So that's a little on shop floor data collection. I'm going to move over to the purchasing cycle now. Staying in the browser, let's go back to my home screen. And there are a number of things we could look at here. One of them being the buyer's workbench, which is a dashboard for your buyers, which will show outstanding requests for quotes and overdue POs and things like that. But I'm going to just drive right to the new PO suggestions. And this is really where the power of MRP comes in. So when MRP runs, it's looking at all the supply and demand, and it's making suggestions for you as a buyer on what you should be bringing into the company. You can buy direct to a job, you can buy to inventory, or a combination of both. So what we're looking at here is a list of suggestions. You can see that I've got a pallet clamp suggested that I order it by this date and bring it in on this date. If there was a lead time, it would show the difference there. The quantity is 1. It's suggesting our standard supplier. And notice that this one actually is purchased direct to a job number 2117. So this is a suggestion. If I'm happy with this, I simply click on the buy button. Okay, so I click on buy, and then I say generate purchase orders up in the top window here. It'll turn the suggestions into an actual PO. I always have the ability to modify the vendor, modify the quantity, and even if after I create the PO, I can still go back and do that. Now, as a buyer, I don't want to randomly go through these. So in a lot of custom environments, you might want to filter this by the job. So a lot of customers in this type of environment might say, I want to buy everything for this job. So I'm going to drag the job column up here, and we're going to group everything by the job. So now we can see under job number 2117, these are all the items that I need to buy. Now I'm also going to group it by supplier. So by job, by supplier. And now I'm looking at job number 2117. I've got 1 item to buy from ABC Electronics. I've got 2 items to buy under ABC Metals, and a host of materials that I need to buy from Ethan Industrial. So check, 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 buy, and away I go. All right, we're getting close to the end here. I am going to touch on the CAD integration with Epicor. So we do have something called CAD Link. In this case, I'm showing an example of SolidWorks, and I'm going to open up a file here as an example. And this is a SolidWorks model with some subassemblies and components in it here. And CAD Link is a plugin to SolidWorks or any CAD system that you have. So you'll notice here I've got some plugins that says run CAD Link to engineering BOM. I can run it to the quote BOM or the job. So what this means is I can push the bill of material directly from my SolidWorks file directly to a manufacturing job. Or if I'm quoting and I want that BOM in for my cost structure, I can push the bill of material into the quote, or I can run it into a master or an engineering BOM. So when I click on that, what it's going to do is it's going to compare what's in Epicor to what's in SolidWorks. And if there's nothing, if it's a brand new design, it'll push everything through as new parts. If it already exists, maybe this is a revision or an addition to materials that engineering is adding on the fly, it'll just push through the new components. So this shows me my indented bill of material, and anything in white means that it already exists in Epicor and SolidWorks. Anything in green means it's brand new, so it's going to create these brand new parts. And anything that's white with yellow on it means that there's a discrepancy between engineering and manufacturing. And this is probably the most common thing that I hear. Engineers call it one thing, manufacturing people call it another thing. And this is saying, pick one. So in this case, if I click on this, it's showing me that SolidWorks calls it a spring steel material and Epicor calls it a spring steel MTL. And it's asking the person that's doing this, the engineer, to pick which one makes sense. And it will now synchronize the 2 systems so that we don't have 2 different descriptions for the same part. You can push a bill of material, an indented bill of material, through using the standard functionality in Epicor, and that's a one-way push. But this gives you that bidirectional synchronization. All right, again, watching my time, I'm going to jump back to the PowerPoint and wrap it up with field service and close off, and then I'll take any questions you might have. So in Epicor, there are different options for field service. One of them is that you can use an MES device. So this allows you to clock in for time and attendance and track time against jobs and projects. It allows you to move inventory off your truck if you're carrying inventory. And the only concern or thing to consider here is that you need a live internet connection to be able to do this. You can also use the mobile apps that we talked about earlier. And this is where, the employee would be on the road, they would log in, and they, again, have the ability to apply labor and issue materials off their truck, if that's the case. Okay. They can see their upcoming work that's scheduled. There's also a basic field service time and expense entry app, which I was going to show you live, but we're a little bit pressed for time here. But you get the idea here. You can see on the time entry app, and this is Android and iOS compatible. It shows me the various time submissions that I've got in here, and you can do it by the week in this case. So, you know, if I'm somebody that's working on a project all week, I might just book my time at the end of the week if that's what you're looking for. And it's a very simple way of punching in those hours. Or I could do it a daily time entry. And so the difference here between the MES and this time entry app is that the time entry app, I can book it after the fact, whereas the MES is real time, the clock is running. It also allows you to enter expenses. And then we have something called Advanced Service Pro. And that gets into some additional functionality with a bit of a nicer dispatch board for the technicians. It gives you a visual proximity of the technicians for the customer sites. So it's geo tracking. It allows you to, you know, take pictures in some of the other apps, but also receive signatures off a work order. So if I'm on site doing an installation or commissioning, I can take a signature from that person on that work order. That's it for service. I'm going to finish off with one slide on implementation, and then we'll open it to Q&As. So from an implementation standpoint of Epicor, we've got a 5-stage methodology: prepare, plan, design, and validate and deploy. Prepare is really defining the scope of work, what's included, what's not, who's responsible for what, and the objective really is no surprises. From a plan stage, we do a kickoff meeting. We do a deep dive into your existing processes as to what, why, and how you do things. We'll create a project plan in conjunction with you on an agreed upon and realistic time plan. The design phase is where the bulk of the work is done. You're hands-on working with our team. You're going through each business process. Our team is making recommendations, and you're configuring Epicor for your business. You're testing it out in each individual process. The validation stage is really, it's a day in the life scripted test. We're going to run through at least 2 of these with you. We're going to encourage you to do more on your own. And really the premise here is the more testing you do, the more comfortable you are, and the more confident you are that when you go live on that Monday morning, it's just another Monday. Okay, there are no hiccups. And then we stick around for your first month end. We build in time for that go live support. Make sure that you're stable and everything is running as planned. One thing I do want to mention is that, which is different than other vendors that I've experienced, is that our team receive a bonus based on you going live on time and on budget. Keyword actually there is under budget. So our team will not let your project go sideways. They will focus and keep a very tight control over the implementation. And if they see something slipping or they see a risk, they will raise that risk and make sure that it's addressed. Okay. They are bonus based on you being live on time and on or under budget. So to close off, if you like what you see here today, be happy to do a discovery meeting at your office, get a better understanding of your business and requirements, gather some sample information, and do a demonstration as really a day in the life or a simulation of your business, focusing on what's important to you. We're happy to prepare a proposal for you, identify if there's any funding available, and provide references for you to call and or visit. So again, my name is Ray Buchan, Director of Sales at Success Partners. I cover the East across the US and Canada. Evan Lane is in the West, and John Pridich is our president. So at this stage, I will stop talking. I'll look at the chat window and see if we have any questions, and feel free to take yourself off mute if you have additional questions as well.